Hi, Ben here from Trident Fly Fishing. I'm here today to welcome you to our TFO Saltwater Mini Shootout. Today we are comparing TFO's two most popular saltwater 8-weight rods, the TFO BVK and the TFO Mangrove. One of these rods is designed by Lefty Cray and the other by Flip Pallet. So let's compare them and see who wins. Starting off from a cosmetic standpoint, these two rods are very, very similar. They've got the same size fighting butt, virtually the same grip, and a very similar design on the rest of the blank. We're going to point out a couple of key features on these rods that do differentiate them a little bit. The first thing is the reel seat on the Mangrove is a little bit better. It's got thicker rings that are easier to grasp, and it's all metal, which looks a little bit nicer, I think, than the carbon fiber insert on the BVK. Next, the capping on the cork on the Mangrove is a little bit different. It doesn't have this black ring, it's got these cork rings here. I think that looks a little bit better as well. But from a fishing standpoint, there's no difference between these two grips. Next, as we get up to the blank, I'm going to give the nod to the BVK in terms of the green color. It just looks better. It's very nice. They have a little bit of a transparent coat on it. From there on up, you'll notice these stripping guides, which while identical in construction, the BVKs are a little bit wider in diameter. So if you do get a line caught, it's going to slip through those guides just a tad better on the BVK than it does on the Mangrove. Overall, these rods are so similar, but we're going to see how they cast. To do that, we've got them set up with one of our favorite setups, which is the Hatch 7 Plus and Rio Bonefish line. Now let's get to that cast test. So our first casting distance for our TFO Saltwater Shootout, we've got the Mangrove at 35 feet. And I gotta say, this Mangrove does a pretty good job. I'm pretty impressed by how it casts at this distance. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a 9.5 out of 10. It's really almost as good as some of the top rods out there. So to finish up our first distance of our TFO Saltwater Shootout, we've got the BVK at 35 feet. The BVK being the faster rod gives you a little bit less feel, is a little bit less accurate at this 35-foot distance. I'm gonna give the BVK a 7.5 out of 10 at 35 feet. So we moved these rods back to 50 feet. And this is your prime saltwater distance. This is the distance that you're gonna be casting all day, every day on the flats. So it's really important. And the first rod I've got here is the Mangrove. And I gotta say, it's not bad at this distance. I was expecting it to be a little bit floppy, but I'm really not feeling a lot of that. It's not quite as good as, say, the Scott Meridian or the NRX, but I'm really happy with the way it's casting. I'm gonna give this rod an 8.5 out of 10 at 50 feet. So now we've taken the BVK and pushed it to 50 feet as well. And both of these rods are about equal at 50 feet. I'd actually give the slight edge to the BVK. It's a little bit faster, a little bit easier. I'm gonna give the BVK a 9 out of 10 at 50 feet. So bringing these rods back to our final distance in the TFO Saltwater Shootout, the Mangrove at 70 feet. We've got a nice tailwind here, and the Mangrove is not all that bad. Again, I'm wishing for a little bit extra performance at this distance, but it's certainly workable. I'm gonna give this rod an 8.5 out of 10 at 70 feet as well. So while the Mangrove did really, really well at 70 feet, with the wind, we wanted to see how it would do into the wind. So we turned it around, and it was really apparent that this was not the best rod at that distance. It was really tough to get it out there. So very accurate and still to with the wind conditions, but against the wind, which is what you're going to be fighting every day on the Salt, it just didn't have enough. So I'm going to actually give that rod a 7 out of 10 at 70 feet. So we've got the BVK at 70 feet, and this is definitely a distance where we see a lot of difference between the BVK and the Mangrove, particularly into the wind. Casting downwind, I would actually tell you that the Mangrove is a more accurate rod. It's just a little bit more forgiving and easier to cast. But you turn it into the wind, the BVK stays about the same, and the Mangrove just falls apart. I'm gonna give the BVK an 8 out of 10 at 70 feet. So one thing that was interesting about this test is that we cast it downwind, and the Mangrove under those conditions was actually the better rod. It's a little bit softer, a little bit easier to cast. However, that's not a condition that you get all the time in the Salt. And when we turned it around, the BVK was much better. It's just a faster rod overall, and it does so much better on any casts over 50 feet. In close, the Mangrove was the winner, both into the wind and away from it. The bottom line is, if you're a really good caster, you're gonna like the BVK better. If you're an intermediate caster and you're fishing in pretty good conditions, the Mangrove is an excellent choice. The BVK is also one of the lightest rods at about 3.7 ounces, whereas the Mangrove is about 4.4 ounces in this 9-foot 8-weight size. So I'm sorry to say flip, but I think Lefty's got you on this one. Both of these rods retail for $279.95 and are available with free shipping from TridentFlyFishing.com. If you enjoy this review, leave a comment in the box below, and don't forget to like our video. If you have questions about these rods, or you just want to talk to one of our pro staff, give us a call at 888-413-5211, or email us 24/7 at support@TridentFlyFishing.com. I'm Ben, thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.